On this episode of Motorsport Recently, we discuss the IMSA prototype class split and Scott Dixon's IndyCar commitments for the future. Also, we have what is possibly some of the biggest motorsport news of the 21st century. This is Triple Crown Racing. Let's get into it. Wow, some very interesting news broke today, and this is following Fernando Alonso's cryptic tweet that he posted on Twitter. I'm gonna say that was rubbish. Alright, so we have some very exciting news, and that is after posting his cryptic tweet, Fernando Alonso has quit Formula 1. He's retiring from Formula 1 at the end of this season. Now, he's not said anything about exactly what he's doing, but IndyCar is the obvious choice with McLaren, with all the talks they've had of going to IndyCar and his interest in IndyCar, and he will probably end up doing the WEC as well next year. We don't know. But this is incredibly interesting news, and it is added to what is already a hectic Formula 1 driver market. So it looks like at this point Fernando Alonso is going to IndyCar for 2019, which is very interesting for both Formula 1 and IndyCar because he's a big name and he's also leaving a seat open in Formula 1 at McLaren. So as I said earlier, IndyCar most likely. He may do the WEC again, we don't know, but while he's in the States, I'm thinking he might be able to do some IMSA as well. I don't know. He might do a few races in IMSA. He might do the North American Endurance Championship. That could be very cool if he ends up doing that, but IndyCar is the most likely thing that's going to happen, and it's practically confirmed anyway, but he hasn't said anything yet. Then there's like 3 people who think he might go to NASCAR. Well, they hope. It's more wishful thinking than anything else that he'll go to NASCAR. But this announcement opens up a world of possibility. The Formula 1 community is bawling their eyes out, but the IndyCar community, I think we're quite happy over here because it's great to have him on board with something like this. So the motorsport world is very different than what it was yesterday. So this is a very exciting announcement. It opens up a world of possibilities, and we'll be covering it right here on Motorsport Recently. So, following rumours that Scott Dixon would actually partner Fernando Alonso at McLaren, he's actually reconfirmed with Chip Ganassi. Now, Scott Dixon was actually approached by McLaren to partner up with Fernando Alonso, which would have created a super team, so you'd have probably one of the best drivers in Formula 1 and one of the best drivers in IndyCar on the same team, and theoretically that would create an unstoppable team. So Scott Dixon was actually a prime candidate to be going to McLaren. There's been a lot of speculation over that, but that's all been put to bed because he's re-signed with Chip Ganassi for 2019 and beyond, so those rumors have been defeated. Now the reason for this, he's basically saying that Chip Ganassi is where he wants to stay. He's been driving for Chip Ganassi since 2002, so making a major move like this and going to McLaren, that's not really what he'd want to do. So he's sticking around with Chip Ganassi for 2019 and the near future. So it looks like, unless by some weird miracle, if you will, Fernando ends up joining Chip Ganassi, which is unlikely, Scott Dixon is not going to be Fernando Alonso's teammate. So it looks like they will both be in IndyCar, but they'll be racing against each other as rivals, not teammates. Now, this is an interesting story that I probably should have covered a little while ago, but now David Land's covered it. I feel left out. So here's this story. The IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship will be splitting their prototype class into two separate classes, with DPI as the top category and LMP2 as the secondary category. The DPIs will no longer be affected by BOP, and they'll be in their own separate class. Now, David Land, as I talked about him earlier because he's just brilliant. He actually put this perfectly, and I like to think that I would have said something along the lines of this as well. He said something along the lines of, sports car racing has never taken off because the major organizations, they've only paid attention to the manufacturers and not to their privateers. And then when all the manufacturers leave, the privateer class has to step up and be the top category. Now, honestly, I find this split quite annoying because it looks like this season that Core Autosport is actually challenging the big guys with their LMP2 Orica, and next season they won't be able to do that anymore. So you had JDC and Core Autosport challenging the likes of Wayne Taylor Racing, Action Express, Team Penske, and that's not going to happen anymore, which is quite a shame. It looks like this whole David and Goliath battle will end starting next year, and personally I hope that Core Autosport goes out fighting and hopefully wins the championship in the prototype class, because that would then show that the privateers can compete with the manufacturers, and that, I guess, that would be a good way to end this David and Goliath battle. And yeah, I'm actually really disappointed that that's going to come to an end. It's not good to forget about your privateers and only focus on the manufacturers. You only have to look... I'm adding my own point to this. See, I'm being original. I'm not just content stealing. Look at the WEC. They had a relatively strong LMP1 class. They had manufacturers like Peugeot, Audi, Porsche, Toyota. They were all there, but when pretty much Peugeot, Porsche, and Audi all left, you only had Toyota, and you had no one to challenge them. So you pretty much had the LMP1 class hastily rebuilt with the privateers from LMP2 and elsewhere. They've come in and they're now in LMP1, but it's really unfair because the manufacturers are just winning all the time. And that is what happens when you don't pay attention to your privateers and only focus on the manufacturers, because now LMP1 is rubbish. It's rubbish. There's no competition in it. It's just Toyota winning all the time. So I think this is a bad move that IMSA are doing this. I don't think it's good to put all your eggs in one basket with the top prototype class, and I was actually enjoying this battle between the privateers and the manufacturers. It will be good to see the DPIs be able to perform at their best. Take this as you will, but one of the best LMP2 running teams in IMSA, JDC Miller Motorsport, has just bought a couple of Cadillacs and will be racing the Cadillac DPI in 2019. This is what these new regulations have forced the privateers to do. So if you want to compete for race wins, they're having to either just suck it up and stay in the P2 class, or they're having to spend all this money and buy DPIs, and that's just frustrating. Anyways, that's going to do it for this episode of Motorsport Recently. You probably noticed this episode was a bit unplanned, and that is because I don't actually have a script for this episode, so I had to come up with something because of the Alonso announcement. I hope you've enjoyed. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.